Good morning, everyone. Let me well, I'm audible.
Good
Good
morning,
morning.
sir. Good morning, sir.
Okay, sorry for the couldn't take class yesterday, so we'll find out a way to compensate. Well, let's start today, and today is the last topic of our module 2, and the next week we'll start with module 3, that is network layer and routing. So we looked at congestion with minor points were missing, which I'll cover today. We essentially said the TCP is end-to-end congestion control. That basically means underlying network does not provide any explicit information about the congestion. Any router intermediate devices does not tell either the sender or the receiver that we are having problems, please slow down. It is the end system, primarily sender, determines that's the network congestion. And there are two ways it determines. One is the times out, and times out basically means that packets are being lost. Other is you get duplicate acts. Duplicate act means there is some congestion in the network, and it has been recovered, so but it gets an indication. So that's what TCP was. So primarily you infer congestion. You don't receive the information, but based on the behavior, what you see, you infer and decide what is to be done. And that's the approach taken by TCP. There are other protocols which makes use of network assisted congestion control, and that means the intermediate system, the routers or switches, provide information about the congestion. For that to happen, those router or something should know about state of the connection, and then they can provide, because if there's no clue which sender, what state it is, it may be tough. So this indication is done in what is called ATM networks. That is what we mostly study. ATM is asynchronous transfer mode. TCP/IP does support what is called ECI bit, ECN bit, explicit congestion notification, but that I did later on. But primarily we look at how does ATM work, and they somehow then, because they perceive, they know the congestion, they know what trouble they are facing, they can indicate to the sender how much to slow down and what they could be sending next. So we'll look at what is the ATM protocol is, what are the different category of services. Even the book talks about only ABR, available bitrate, but I'll give a little flavor of what are the other services ATM network offer. So approach in ATM ABR, basically they follow a virtual circuit approach. Like when we send an IP packet, sender does not set up any connection with the receiver. It simply sends the packet by putting destination IP and done. In BC approach virtual circuits, which are not part of a course, so we did not cover that. The what it does is before it can actually carry data transfer, a sender allocates the resources along the path. So path is reserved, and that is called each switch basically establishes a virtual circuit, and all the way from A to B through all the switches and back, only when the circuit is established, then only the sender can send the data packet. And that means because each switch has maintained the virtual circuit, so it knows that for this virtual circuit, how much data are being sent, what kind of resources were being allocated, and that way it can track the sender's behavior. And because the switch can track sender's behavior, if some problem occurs or congestion occurs, it can inform the sender as well that what is to be done. So it can take a specific action, primarily which means ask sender to slow down or even shut down, don't send anymore. That doesn't happen typically. So the moment it sees congestion, it asks the respective sender who's sending more traffic or something, please slow down so that we can handle the existing traffic there. This normally happens If every circuit is allocated desired resources, there should never see the case, and we look at what would the such cases would be. So ATM offer different kind of services. First service is called constant bitrate. That means each application before it starts data transfer indicates to the network what is the fixed bandwidth or bit rate it needs. And that means it will not send data at more rate, it will not send data at less rate, it will always send data at this rate. So switch can allocate that many resources, and if all applications, all connections are CBR type, then you will never have a congestion. Challenges occurs, it also gives you variable bitrate because most of the applications, you don't have a fixed bitrate. You do specify a minimum, but see what could be variable part. Like sometimes you download more data, sometimes you do send less. If you're talking, sometimes there's a silence. So you look at downloading and the video, so sometimes it is the same image, compression gives you less data. For the new screen, you get a more data. So data rate could be varying. And it is because of these varying data rates, you might get into trouble. So switch might allocate more, switch might accept the session and have a limited resources, and statistically assume that not all senders will send the data at the max rate. So in the variable bit rate, application specifies the minimum rate and the maximum rate it will send, and then it sends data as per that. Now the traffic could be real time or it could be non-real time, which is bursted traffic. Real time is like watching a live TV match. Non-real time would be you're trying to do bank transaction or getting an email download or something of that kind. Those will be non-real bursted traffic. Then another category of service is called unspecified bitrate, which is more like IP. I don't indicate how much data I'll send, but I'll send whatever data I got, and if you have buffers, send the data. If you don't have buffers, simply discard it. So I can't specify at the level of the IP works. So UBR primarily works at the level of IP without knowing how much data we could send. And then you have the available bitrate. Sorry, I say variable bitrate is you specify some rate and keep varying the data. You specify minimum, but not available bitrate to indicate minimum and the peak. And this kind of very similar to what TCP does. If you look at TCP, when you do slow start, we basically say we start slow, send one segment. If we get the X, send two segments. If we get the X, send four segments. So we keep trying to check, is there a bandwidth available? If so, we kept sending it. And the moment we get duplicate tag or timeout, we reduce down. So we basically keep measuring for what is the available bandwidth. And based on the available bandwidth, we keep sending. And that's the reason for congestion control. We're basically studying ATM ABR congestion control, that is ATM asynchronous transfer mode, available bitrate congestion control. Typically, we'll not get into details of too many of how the ATM protocol is, what the cell structure is. It's about 53 byte cell size and so on and so forth. But we focus more on understanding how does network help dealing with the congestion. So ATM is ABR is defined as elastic service because sender could send data depending on what is the bandwidth available. If sender path is underloaded, that means capacity available. Sender would send more data, use the available bandwidth. If path is congested, then it will decrease or slow down, or what is called throttle. Throttle meaning I send much less than the current rate, and that throttle will bring to minimum bitrate. So available bitrate, when you set up a ABR connection, ATI ABR connection, you specify the minimum bitrate and the maximum. And so once you throttle, so network switch when allocate the circuit, it guarantees you the minimum bitrate. It doesn't guarantee you the maximum what you ask for, but say given the capacity, we might. And that is where you might get into congestion. So if switch gets a congestion, it indicates throttle down, come back to minimum, but if capacity exists, sender can send more data. How does it work? So normally each data packet is sent, and along with data packets, there's something called resource management cell. In ATM parlance, a data packet is called cell or ATM cell. So with each 32 cell data cells, by default we send one RM cell. RM is resource management, which primarily used to indicate how the resources are being doing, and if there is a congestion, can we deal with it? Now, in the RM cell, there are two bits which we'll look at, and this, so the center sends the RM cell, one RM cell per 32 data cells. This could be more or less, but by default, we send one resource management cell with after each 32 data cell. Now, if switch gets a congestion, mild congestion or a severe congestion, so RM cell has two bits, which is called NI bit and a CI bit. NI bit means no increase. So by default, the bits are reset to 0. So if switch faces a mild congestion, because other people are also using ABR and sending with higher rate, it sets the NI bit. NI bit meaning no increase means asking sender to little bit mild congestion, so sender shouldn't increase the rate. But if switch facing a congestion, it set the CI bit, which is a congestion indicator. Now this self bits, the RM cell is going from sender to the receiver. So receiver get this cell, and when receiver send the response back, it will indicate to sender. So response is little delayed, sender get a response, and then it will slow down. So the RMs also return to the sender by the receiver with bit index, and these bits are set by the switches. So if switch sees a minor congestion, it set the NI bit. It basically means no increase, don't increase the traffic. If switch sees the more congestion, it set the CI bit indicating heavy congestion. This RM cells goes to the receiver, and receiver will send back the RM cells back to the sender. And when sender receives the RM cells, it will take appropriate action. Either it goes down to the minimum rate guaranteed or will not increase the traffic. So looking at, you can look at diagrammatically, the red cells are basically RM cells and white cells are data cells. So after each so a sender sends the RM cells, and switch will basically indicate, set the value. And if switch want to indicate a specific value for the sender, because switch knows the state connection, it has allocated the virtual circuit. It knows what is the sender rate sender is sending from. So it can even indicate the rate to which sender should send. So RM cell has a 2-byte field called explicit rate. Reach the value, and when this value is reached to the sender, then sender would decrease to the rate specified in this ER2-byte field. In that sense, sender can basically decrease the rate. Also in data cell also has one bit set, EFCI. If cell doesn't want to wait for RM cell to come, because 32 bits, 32 cells are coming, or RM cell frequency could be lower, then even in the data cell, a switch could set the bit called EFCI, which is explicit forward congestion indicator, which will tell the receiver, which packet is going this way, that there is a congestion, and then receiver would send the packet back to the sender, RM cell saying, please slow down. And that's how the congestion control works in the ATM network. So essentially, network makes use of congestion bits either in the RM cell or in the EFCI bit in the data cell, or if we want to give a specific rate, it sets the value in ER explicit rate field to indicate what the sender rate should be, and then sender slows down, and that's how. So the overhead of the challenge is sender needs to establish a virtual circuit. Until the circuit is established, it can't send the data, and that means each switch in the path has to allocate resources, and this could be challenging process and could be time consuming. IP that way is much better. It works fine because there is no congestion, there is no connection setup required. So this is what is about ATM ABR. Now let us come back to TCP congestion. We left somewhere in the middle. So let's review what we did and then how does TCP congestion control works. So we had three phases in TCP. Can someone recollect and tell me what are the three phases we listed in congestion control? Amravati, Anusruti, Aswini, Susmita, Bhavani. No one seems to be there. Aruna,
Sir.
yeah. What are the three phases of congestion control in TCP? We discussed that last time. Bhumika, Nan,
Hello. Sir, to send a router with infinity buffer,
hmm?
to send a router with infinity buffer.
No, those are we look at the theory. I'm saying in TCP, we define three phases of congestion control. So looking at the three different conditions when you discuss the cost of congestion and cause of the congestion. That's the theory part of it. Why looking at what are the three phases of TCP congestion control. Like first phase was slow start. You remember what the slow start is? Niharika,
Slow starts and conjunction avoidance, and then
yeah,
fast
congestion
recovery.
avoidance is second phase, and third phase is
Fast recovery.
fast recovery. How does slow start work? Niharika, Dhruv, Faria, Gagan Suri. Looks like most of you guys
Hello.
simply sign in and then just walk away.
Sir, congestion avoidance phase and congestion detection phase.
No, fine, but I'm saying, how does slow start work? I remember
Uh,
we discussed that last class.
After every RTT, the congestion, the window size will increment, sir, exponentially.
But
Like,
exponentially means what? So it doubles. So let me review. Please go through and don't leave it. Just come to the class and be done away with. So it is slow start phase, congestion avoidance phase, and fast recovery phase. In the slow start, we start with only one segment. So initially I set my congestion window to 1. That's what my sliding window size is. And I send the packet as much as my sliding window is. And because my congestion window is 1, I send one segment. So when one segment goes, and if I get the ACK, this meaning network is fine, there is no issue. I increase my congestion window to 2, double it. So CWND from 1 it becomes 2. And then I send two segments. When I get both the egg, because both the egg will come almost same RTT, my congestion window should become 4. So at this point, my congestion window is 1. At this point, it becomes 2. When I get both the eggs, it will become 4. For efficiency reasons, the moment I get first egg, like I got the first egg, I'll make congestion window increase by 1. So it was 2 here, it will become, and because it has become 3, only 1 egg is pending, I'll send 2 more segments. When I got my second egg, I increase by 1 again, 3 becomes 4, I send, because at this point in time, I have got 2 eggs and I send 2 packets, so I'll space for 2, I send 2 more segments. 4, so I get all the 4 eggs, I'll make congestion window to 8 and send 8 segments. And the way to do is, with each egg, I increase by 1. So when I get the egg for this segment becomes 5, for this segment becomes 6, this segment becomes 7, and this segment becomes 8, and that means when I send, I'll be sending 8 segments. And that's how I keep doubling my number of segments that are transmitted. But I know that certain point in time, if I keep doubling, I'm going to hit the congestion. For example, let's say my congestion occurs in the network at, let's say, 70 segments. Now, if I were to increase from 1 to 2, 2 to 4 to 8, 16, 32, and 64, network has capacity, there will be no issue. Now, since I am doubling, 64 become 128, and network capacity is 70, so all my packets would be lost after 70 seconds. So that means I need to maintain some threshold that after that I shouldn't increase exponentially because I'm going to hit congestion very soon. So let me become safe. So you always maintain a threshold called the segment threshold, and once we hit a threshold, rather than doubling, we increase by 1. And so when we get the full egg, all the eggs we increase by 1 and then send it. So look at the way it works. And this is called additive increase, multiplicative decrease, and I'll indicate why we are calling it AIMD. So let's say my congestion window at some point in time was here. This is my round trip time. This time indicates round trip time. So my congestion window is some value. When I got all the X, I increase by 1. I send, let's say my congestion window was 10. I made it 11, made it 12, made it 13. I keep increasing by 1 with each round trip time, or when get X of all those 10s or all those 11s. And at some point in time, face some congestion, it will drop some packets. And that means other packets would result in duplicate X. When I get duplicate X, that basically indicates that network had a congestion and it has recovered. And because it is recovered, I can slow down, but I don't have to become 0. And that means I should be able to quickly recover from the congestion that occurred because network recovered. So as TCP connection, I should quickly recover, and that's why it is called fast recovery. And the way it is done is, whatever my congestion window was, when I got 3 duplicate acts, I make it half, I set my threshold, and space. I get the egg of all segments, increase by 1, increase by 1, keep increasing by 1, and if at some point in time, I am increasing by 1. Increasing called additive by
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Sir, voice is breaking.
yes, looks like okay, it should recover now. Network traffic seems to be bad college. Yes, voice is breaking. Just give me a minute, see if I can. Oh, I'm just trying. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, let's resume back. We'll see if then I'll try to move to my hotspot. What we're seeing is because I'm increasing my congestion window by one, I'm increasing by adding things. And that's why it is called additive increase. But some point in time, I'm going to see some congestion. And because I'm increasing linearly, so some I'll hit congestion window at some point in time, but some packet would be lost and I'll get duplicate acts that indicates some congestion has occurred, but network is recovered. So I make my congestion window to current value to half. So I set my threshold to current value of congestion window to half. And because I am decreasing by a factor of 2, I'm not decreasing by a constant value. I'm decreasing by a factor. That's why it is called multiplicative decrease, because I'm decreasing by half. I'm decreasing by factor of 2, so it is called multiplicative decrease. But when I increase, I'm increasing linearly by adding a value. So whenever I increase my congestion value, I'm adding, hence it is called additive increase. But when I hit a minor congestion, I decrease by a factor, by multiplication factor, which is half, hence it is called multiplicative decrease. And after this, the process would go on. And because if I'm getting duplicate X, that means there are some congestion, but I'm getting X means network is able to send traffic. That means network has recovered. So I shouldn't increase my traffic. I should slow down, but maybe not initially from 0, but to some beginning, some state where network has a less load. Because I have recovered from congestion, that's why the moment I hit 3 duplicate acts, I enter a phase called fast recovery. And that essentially what happens. So we look at, but if I hit a timeout meaning I did not get any act at all. No act meaning either my packets were lost or acts were lost. And because I'm losing all the packets, I want network to give a breather. I bring my congestion window to 1 and set my threshold to half again. And then go to slow start phase. If I get 3 duplicate acts, because 1 duplicate act could be a just confusion, some minor recovery and network would have again gone to the congestion again. So if I get 3 duplicate act means my subsequent 3 packets were delivered. So network has recovered a bit, but let me not cause more load. And that's why I enter what is called a fast recovery phase. So I set my congestion window to half, set my threshold to same value, and go to congestion avoidance phase back, grows linearly. Now there are different implementations of TCP. One is called TCP Tahoe, and one is called TCP Reno. Has anyone heard about Reno and Tahoe, the names? Anyone in the class? How many of you heard about Las Vegas? Anyone heard about Las Vegas? Gotham?
So,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
What is Las Vegas famous for?
Sir, you told us about this, sir.
Told you about this. Okay, perfectly fine. Then say that. Thank you. So Tahoe is the first implementation. Irrespective of that, the timeout or duplicate acts, we always start with 1. Reno is an improvement. So if you have done your NS2 simulation, you can indicate what kind of TCP connection you want. Is it Reno or Tahoe? And if you do Tahoe, anytime duplicates or packet trash, you always start with 1. If it is Reno implementation on duplicate acts, you will start with half and then continue with that. And that's how the implementation is. So this diagram, if you look at, this indicates Tahoe and this indicates Reno. Tahoe meaning Even in duplicate acts, I start with 1, but Reno means I make it half and then continue. And you can look at the exercises given in this link, follow this, the different exercises for you to identify, and I'll probably show you some pictures for you to identify what this basically graph gives you there. So this indicates I start with 1, I got the x, so this is round trip time, this side, and this side is your congestion window. So slow start phase, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, and 8 was my threshold. I increase linearly at the when my congestion window becomes 15, I hit a timeout, I come back to 1, and my threshold becomes 8. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, I again hit a timeout. Now because my CW is 4, so my threshold becomes 2. Threshold becomes 2, but because of timeout, I start with 1. So 1 to 2 is a slow start phase, and 2 onwards, it is congestion avoidance phase because my threshold has become 2. And so on and so forth, it works. At this point in time, if you look at my duplicate occurs at the value 18. When the value becomes 18, I make it half, so threshold becomes 9. 18 and half is 9. But because I got 3 duplicate acts, with each act, I increase my congestion window by 1. So 3 duplicate acts, threshold is 9. With 3 duplicate acts becomes 12. So I start my slow congestion avoidance phase by 12. So should be able to interpret this, and that's the exercises given in your links. So you can look at other examples. I'm leaving it there, and you can look at from that perspective. So if you look at the state transition diagram of congestion control, we start in the slow start phase. We start with CW and D is equal to 1, some initial threshold equal to 64. And when you do NS2 experiments, you can experiment with different values and then see how does my TCP behave. You can specify different connection times. You can specify different such a threshold for TCP and work with those. I start with 1, and each time I get duplicate ACK, I increase my duplicate ACK count. If I get a new ACK, I increase, basically I'm a slow start phase. With each ACK, I increase by 1 segment. And they would say MSS meaning 1 segment. So if I send, let's say 3 packets, I got 3 ACKs, it will become basically 6. So with each new ACK, I'm increasing by 1, and that's how it basically doubles with 1 RTT. If whenever I hit my congestion window more than threshold, that means it's time for me to move to congestion avoidance phase. The only difference is I will not increase by 1 segment, but I'll increase by 1 segment by number of pending segments. So if you look at 1 segment by pending segment is number of window size. So that means when I get all the X, then only my CW increases by 1. So remember TCP is stream oriented. So when it's increased by 1 segment, we're looking at segment size, which could be 1460 or whatever, some number frame size. So increase by that much because we're sending data as a byte stream. So with each second congestion avoidance phase, whatever my segment size is, and my current window size I increase only by that much. So that when I get all the X, my overall increase congestion window is by 1 when I get all the X. This 1 means by 1 segment. So when I say my CWT increases by 1, we are referring to 1 segment. That means 1460 if it is TCP and Ethernet. So we keep getting new X, we keep increasing and keep sending data. And if we get duplicate X, we increase the duplicate X count. Now it may so happen that with your timeout, we set threshold to half a congestion window, go back to slow start phase. That means set my congestion window to 1. On timeout, set congestion window to 1, set my threshold to congestion window by 2, and then that means till this threshold, I'll go with the slow start, and moment I increase, I'll go to congestion avoidance phase. If my duplicate act becomes 3, then I go to what is called a fast recovery phase. Fast recovery phase means my threshold is still congestion window by 2, and because I got 3 duplicate acts, I set my consumption window 3 more than SSL threshold, and this is what is called fast recovery phase. And the moment I get a new act, congestion avoidance phase. If I get duplicate act means my congestion is persisting, but if I get new act, I go to congestion avoidance phase. And in fast recovery, if I hit a timeout, I go back to my slow start phase. And the TCP congestion control diagram is 3 phases: slow start, congestion avoidance, and fast recovery. So with each new act, we increase CWD window. With timeout, we set it to 1, but with threshold always set to half of congestion window when the timeout occurs. So if you look at ideal conditions, assuming that your throughput happens to be basically some value, so let's say a congestion W is the window size in network where loss occurs. If loss occurs at W, that means the moment you hit the point W, you hit a congestion, you set the congestion to W by 2, and because at W by 2, there is no more congestion, you increase linearly. You come to W again, you hit congestion, you set congestion to W by 2, increase linearly. So this is called perfect sawtooth behavior. And if you look at average throughput, it is between W and W by 2 keep increasing. The average throughput would be 3 by 4 W by round trip time. Because this is what throughput would be. Now we look at the fairness, but you look this experiment done from NS2. If you look at this first phase indicates my slow start phase. And my congestion, my threshold was set to 50. So the moment my congestion window becomes more than 50, I lose the packet loss, I get duplicate act, I set my threshold to half, which becomes 25. 52 becomes 26, and then again at a timeout becomes 13, and then again we come back and then go to a slow start phase. And threshold is here now about 12. I keep increasing it. At this point in time, I see a duplicate X. So this value is around 34. You'll basically see a threshold becomes 17. I fall to 17 and again go back. This point is about 46. When I hit a duplicate X, it basically becomes 23, and you can see from here. And that's how you can see it is sawtooth behavior. So connection 1 is started at time 0. Connection 2 is started at time about 30 seconds, 20 seconds, and connection 2 in blue color is started by 40 seconds. They all start, and you can see the sawtooth behavior of each of them. Now we look at is TCP being fair. Essentially, if connection 1 starts at time 0, connection 2 starts at time 20 seconds, connection 3 starts at time 40 seconds, does the first connection you started early has the unfair advantage because it started early? Any thoughts? If some connection starts early, over a long term, does it have extra advantage because you start early? Or you can say early starter advantage. Any thoughts? Any would like to comment? And that's the meaning of TCP being fair. Krishna Pavitra, from these experiments which might have done, I'm sure you might have done the experiment by now, does it give an extra advantage to the early connection setups? Kavita Chaudhary, Kilari Aswik, have you done this experiment in the lab? It's probably experiment number 4.
No, sir.
What experiments you have done so far in the lab?
We have been demonstrated the first experiment and the second experiment, and we had the Java experiments for CNC for CRC.
Okay.
And for like last time we did not have the lab for CN.
No, last time I didn't have lab. I'm talking about lab this time because they are part of your lab experiments.
Yes.
So you haven't done the TCP conjunction on those experiments. So this probably experiment number 4. So look at that. So let me explain you what would happen. You see something of this kind. Let me be. So if you look at here, when I start the connection 1 at time 0, I almost get the full bandwidth because, and then if you look at all connections kind of get the same amount of congestion window. Ideally, we look at time of 50 seconds, connection 1 is consuming about 16 segments, connection 2 is about 10 segments, connection 1 is only about 2 segments. But slowly all connections catch up, and over a period of time, all connections follow the same congestion band, they transmit at the same rate. That basically means there is no early mover advantage just because you started early. For initial few times, you may be early, but over a period of time, everybody would get the same bandwidth. And that is the meaning of TCP fairness. That basically means if there is a router and there is a router has a capacity of R, there is a connection 1, connection 2, connection K. Doesn't matter when this connection started. After some time, each connection will get equal amount of bandwidth, which is R by K. And that's the meaning of fairness. If it does not happen, then TCP is unfair. But if every connection gets equal amount of bandwidth, that is called TCP fair. So let's look at how does TCP become fair, what really happens. Let's look at two connections. We'll look at throughput of connection 1 and throughput of connection 2. Assume my bandwidth is R. Now one possibility is connection 1 get the full bandwidth R, then connection 2 will get bandwidth of 0, so we're at this point. Other possibility is connection 1 gets bandwidth of 0, connection 2 gets bandwidth of R. So my maximum bandwidth congestion for each connection would be this downslope line. Because traffic has to be inside the line, because outside the line means the both connections together are sending more traffic than the R. That cannot happen. So let us look at how does congestion control algorithm help in being fairness. Let's assume that when we start with some point in time, connection 1 has a bandwidth of 50 and connection 2 with bandwidth of 10 and R is equal to 100. That means both the connections can use up to bandwidth of total bandwidth of 100. So initially bandwidth is 60. We are in congestion avoidance phase. That means there is no congestion in the network and both will get the act. When both will get the act, 50 would become 51, 10 would become 11, it will become 52, 12, and they keep increasing till they hit the point of 70 and 30. It get 20 more, 10 get 20 more, it becomes 100. At the point of 100, because this is my network capacity, to hit congestion. When I'm going to hit congestion, what does my congestion window becomes? Half of it. For connection 1, 70 would start from 35 and connection 2 start from 15. So 35 would be somewhere here and 15 would be somewhere here. So they start from 35 and 15 and then slowly increase. 35 becomes 16, 35 becomes 36, 15 would become 16, and they keep increasing linearly till they become 100 again. When they become 100, 35 becomes 50, and 15 becomes, 35 becomes 60, and this, because this is about 50, and both are getting equally, so each get 25 more. So 35 plus 25 is 60, 15 plus 25 is 40. So now see, they started with 50, 10. Now it is 35, 15. At this point in time, because my bandwidth consumption, both connections become 100, the rate of consumption, and both will fall again. And they become factor of half. 60 would become 30, and 40 would become 20. 60 becomes 30, and 40 becomes 20. We move to this point. And they will again increasing. And see, this way, they keep on proceeding. Come back, fall again, and after some time, they'll basically follow this diagonal line where both of the connections share the same bandwidth. And that means TCP is fair. Doesn't matter what time a connection 1 started, what time connection 2 started, after a certain time, the way congestion control works, it will basically get, both connections will get same amount of bandwidth, and that is what you can see. At this point in time, if you look at connection 1 has got a high amount of bandwidth, where connection 2 has very low. Connection 1 is using about 47, connection 2 is getting about 12. At this point in time, if you look at connection 1 has got much higher and connection 2 is little less than, but after some time they all catch up, they all kind of merge. And this is basically the fairness. So it doesn't matter what time a connection starts, because of congestion control, they all come together to consume the bandwidth, and because they fall by half, so the connection which has a more bandwidth will fall more, because the less bandwidth fall less, they all catch up, and see they are all catching up. And because they're all catching up, finally they all merge, and that indicates TCP is basically fair. So primarily, TCP is fair, and how does it really work in the real life application? Initially, multimedia applications, they do not want any delays, because if they use TCP, if any packet is lost, subsequent packet will not be delivered because in order delivery. So just because now one packet is lost, even though I got other packets, I cannot play the remaining video. I need to wait for that packet, and that means whole thing would be jammed buffer. So multimedia applications initially don't use TCP. They use UDP. They say we can lose the packet loss. We will not play the particular scene. Let's say you are watching a cricket match and you lost one frame because of halfway, but you can still see the remaining match live, and that should be fine. So initially, all the multimedia streams will using the UDP and not TCP. They can send packet at a given rate. They can tolerate some loss, but user can still see the game or multimedia live, and that should be fine. But other connections where the data sanctity is required, like browser or email, where real time is not requirement and you don't want to use any data loss and you want in-sequence delivery, use TCP. One thing you have to be clear about fairness, TCP is fair among connections. TCP is not fair among the host. So what do I mean by that? Let me go back to previous case. Let's say, assuming there are two machines, 1 and 2, and machine 1, and let's say my bandwidth is 100. I'm assuming bandwidth is 100, and machine 1 and machine 2. Machine 1 makes 8 connections, and machine 2 uses 2 connections. If we're trying to be fair at the host level, then this bandwidth R should equally get R by 2 to machine 1 and R by 2 to machine 2. If we are fair among connections, and because there are 10 connections, then each connection would get a bandwidth of R by 10. Let me repeat again. If you are fair across hosts, then R by 2 would be given bandwidth to host 1, and R by 2 would be given to host 2. If we are fair across TCP connections, then bandwidth would be shared per connection. So if there are 10 connections, each connection would get bandwidth of R by 10. So machine 1 is using 8 parallel connections, and machine 2 is using 2 parallel connections. So machine would get 80% bandwidth, and machine 2 would get 20% bandwidth. In that sense, TCP is fair among connections, but it is not fair across hosts. And that's the one reason, if more connections are established, you probably likely to get more bandwidth from the machine level. So if you have a link rate of R with 9 existing connections, and new machine asks for 1 TCP connection, and another new app asks for 10 TCP connections, so total becomes 10 plus 1, 11 plus 9, 20. Total 20 connections, and 10 connections will get bandwidth of R by 2, and this will only get R by 10. So understand this, TCP fairness is among connections and not across hosts. So that brings to end of our TCP. We started with the multiplexing, basically requirement demultiplexing. We first with UDP, then we look at TCP, we look at TCP reliability, that means in order delivery, no packet loss, no duplication, no corruption. Reliable does not mean guaranteed delivery. It means if it delivers, it will deliver with following things in mind. That means in order, uncorrupted, no duplication. Then look at flow control, where receiver controlling the sender, and we look at congestion control, network assisted, which is the ATM, primarily ABR, which is elastic service, which works very similar to TCP. And then we look at implementation of the UDP and TCP port number, the checksum and all that. So this brings to end of module 2, and maybe by tomorrow or I'll try to give assignments, which we'll do next week. And next Monday onwards, we'll start with module 3, which is network routing. Any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm done. We can drop out. Thank you. If any questions, let me know. If no questions, we can drop. So I'll close the connection. Thank you.